It is also a factor that Kurdish fighters have been holding thousands of former IS fighters as prisoners. And President Trump is among many to say, well, if Turkey crosses the border, if there's a military incursion, you will then have responsibility for those IS fighters. Is that something with which you agree?
Well, first of all, let me underline that our goal to establish a safe zone will in no way diminish the fight against Daesh. We fought against Daesh in Jarablus. We've arrested more than 5,000 and extradited or expelled more than 8,000 Daesh-related people, eliminated 3,000 of them in the Jarablus area, and we will make sure that Daesh does not come back in any form or shape, whether in Syria or in Iraq or somewhere else. In regards to the prisoners, sorry?
How will you ensure that?
As we did in Jarablus, in Afrin and other places, and as we are doing in the Idlib area as well. As I said, we've done more for the Syrian people and the Syrian refugees for their safety and security than any other country. We're hosting about 4 million Syrian refugees, and we have prevented them from Daesh attacks in Turkey as well as in the Syrian territories. So this fight will continue. It will not diminish in any way the fight against Daesh, and we will, of course, as part of the international coalition against Daesh, continue to coordinate our efforts with the other forces, the other countries in the US, Europeans, Arab countries, Russia, Iran, and others, because Daesh is the common enemy, and we fought against them. We will continue to fight against them. In regards to the Daesh or ISIS prisoners held by PYD-YPG, in fact, the root cause of the problem there, the specific problem with this group of people is that the countries of origin do not want to take them back. I think President Trump was right when he complained about this, that the Americans with PYD-YPG have been holding them in different parts of Syria in the east of Euphrates for the last 2-3 years, and such countries as Germany, France, Italy, UK, and Belgium and others do not want to take them back, but they're their own citizens. They shall take them, they shall try them, and follow the due judicial process. In the meantime, of course, we will make sure that they are not let loose, they are not released, they do not pose any threat to anybody, to Syrians themselves, to us, to Americans, or others. We are working on a plan, again, with our allies and with the local people there, with the Free Syrian Army and local tribes and others, to make sure that they do not pose any threat to anybody.
Where do you want to send them back? And if they're not from the secure zone originally, how will you help to resettle them?
We have about 4 million refugees from Syria in Turkey at the moment. Our president had what he called a policy of open gates, open door, and we have opened not only our doors but also our hearts, not just the government but the people, NGOs, municipalities, and everybody has embraced the Syrians because they fled a war, they fled barrel bombs, they fled unspeakable violence and massacres. So we are hosting them and we will continue to help them as much as we can. But the refugee problem is not only Turkey's problem, it's an international crisis. In recent history, we've not really had this kind of a huge problem as the Syrian refugee crisis. But if you look at the powerful countries of the world, how much they have contributed to this. For much of Europe, the Syrian file is just about not letting the Syrian refugees come to Europe. And that's really so unfair. Thousands of people have died in the cold waters of the Mediterranean and the Aegean, and all they care about is to make sure that they go somewhere else, rather than addressing the issue at its root. We are trying our best to help them by hosting them here, by helping them, by providing aid, but also into Syria. In fact, we are hosting 4 million refugees in Turkey, but also we are helping about 3 million other internally displaced people on the Syrian side. So basically we're taking care of about 7 million, that's about 1/3 of entire Syrian population. So we want to create conditions for them to go back to where they've come from, to their own towns and villages. We're not going to force anybody to go anywhere they don't want to go. And we're not interested in changing the demographics in the east of Euphrates or any part of Syria. In fact, it was PYD-YPG that changed the demographics by occupying Arab villages and towns, in fact, by forcing Other Kurds who do not subscribe to PKK's ideology, some of them fled to Turkey, some had to go somewhere else inside Syria. So we want to correct it and make sure that they go back to their own villages and towns and cities voluntarily and safely.
To that end, and the protection of Syria, Mr. Trump is saying he's ready to totally destroy the economy of Turkey. You're an ally.
Well, yes, we are ally, exactly. And I think, again, he is referring to the domestic political pressure he is getting because he's now accused of betraying the so-called Kurdish forces. And when I see some people referring to PYD-YPG as America's ally, I'm like, wow, you know, there is really a failure of communication or terminology here. We thought we are the ally of the United States and NATO, and as two countries, we have strategic partnership. For the U.S. to pick up a terrorist network in Syria that wants to divide Syria, wants to create its own state, which has committed war crimes. If you read the reports by Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch that were published about a couple of years ago, in fact, they said that what PYD-YPG did in some of the Arab towns in like Ras Al Ain and Tel Abyad and other places may amount, in fact, to war crimes. And by the way, the PYD-YPG has also kidnapped Christian children. The very small Christian community in the east of Euphrates has issued statements about this, asked for our help, also to save their children. They have razed villages to the ground. They've done all these things.